There is a version of you that everyone knows. Your friends know it, your family knows it, you know it, and it is completely fake. Not because you're a liar, but because the moment you decided who you are, you stopped becoming anything else. Sun Tzu wrote that the greatest warrior is the one who never shows his true form. But you've been broadcasting your form to everyone, making yourself predictable, controllable, defeatable. And the worst part is you think that fixed identity is protecting you when it is actually the thing that is destroying every opportunity you'll ever have. In the next 45 minutes, I'm going to show you why becoming no one is the only way to become everyone, and how the ancient art of formlessness can make you literally untouchable. Before we continue, if you want more philosophy and strategy that actually changes your life, subscribe and drop a like. It pushes this to people who need it. Let's begin. Sun Tzu said the supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. But here is what nobody tells you. The enemy is you, not the person reading this right now, but the person you think you are. That collection of labels and stories and characteristics you've been carrying around, calling it your identity. Every morning you wake up and put on that mask. I'm an introvert. I'm a creative. I'm someone who doesn't do mornings. I'm the responsible one. I'm the funny one. I'm the one who always speaks their mind. And you think those labels are describing reality, but they're actually creating prison bars. Because the moment you say I am this, you've also said I am not that, and you've just cut off half of reality from yourself. Watch what happens when life demands something from you that doesn't fit your identity. Let's say you identify as someone who is naturally lazy. Then an opportunity comes that requires discipline and hustle. What do? You don't take it. Not because you can't, but because it would contradict who you think you are. Or maybe you identify as someone who is always authentic and speaks their truth. Then a situation requires you to be diplomatic, to hold back, to read the room and adjust. What happens? You bulldoze through anyway because staying true to yourself is more important than actually getting what you want. Your identity isn't protecting you, it is limiting you. It is making you predictable. And in Sun Tzu's world, predictable means defeated. Sun Tzu teaches that all warfare is based on deception. The highest form of deception isn't lying to your enemy. It is making your enemy think they know you when they don't. But you can't deceive anyone if you can't even deceive yourself. And right now, you're completely transparent because you've told everyone exactly who you are. You've announced your weaknesses by saying, I'm not good at math, or I'm bad with confrontation. You've revealed your strategies by saying, I always think things through, or I go with my gut. You've shown your limitations by saying, that is just not me, or I could never do that. Every time you define yourself, you're giving everyone around you a manual for how to control you, predict you, and ultimately defeat you. And you're doing it voluntarily, because you think having a strong sense of self is a virtue. Here is what Sun Tzu understood that you don't. The warrior who can be all things is unstoppable. He wrote that water has no constant form. Be like water. Adapt to the vessel. Fit the container. When you're facing someone aggressive, be soft. When you're facing someone passive, be forceful. When the situation demands logic, be logical. When it demands emotion, be emotional. But you can't do any of that if you've locked yourself into a form. If you've decided I'm a logical person, you can't access emotion when you need it. If you've decided I'm spontaneous, you can't access discipline when it is required. Your identity is a cage you built and locked yourself inside and convinced yourself it is your true nature. It is not. It is a strategy you adopted when you were too young to know you had other options. And you're still running that outdated strategy like it is law. Think about when you were a kid. You tried on different personalities constantly. One day you were the class clown. The next day you were serious and studious. One week you were into sports. The next week you were into art. You were fluid, formless, becoming. And then somewhere along the way, adults started asking you, who are you? And you felt pressure to give an answer. So you picked something. Maybe you picked it because it got you attention. Maybe you picked it because it kept you safe. Maybe you picked it because everyone else already had a role, and this was the one left over. But you picked something, and once you picked it, you started defending it. You started collecting evidence that proved you were that thing. You started rejecting anything that contradicted it. And slowly that role became a prison. You went from being everything to being one thing, from having infinite potential to having a narrow, predictable, exploitable identity. Sun Tzu said, if you know yourself and you know your enemy, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. But the problem is, you don't know yourself. You know a story about yourself. You know the character you've been playing, but that character isn't you. It is a role. and roles can be changed, dropped, abandoned. The real you, the awareness underneath the character, has no form. It is not introverted or extroverted. It is not creative or analytical. It is not any fixed thing. It is pure potential, pure adaptability, pure power. But you'll never access that power as long as you keep identifying with the character. Let me tell you what happens when you become no one. You become dangerous, not in a violent way, but in a strategic way. When people can't figure you out, they can't control you. When they can't predict you, they can't defeat you. When they think they know who you are, and then you show up as something completely different, you have all the power. This is why the most effective leaders are paradoxes. They're strong but gentle, they're confident but humble, they're decisive but open to input. They're all of these contradictory things because they're not locked into being any one thing. They adapt to what the situation requires, and people find that magnetic because most people are so locked into their identity that they're boring, predictable, safe. But someone who has no fixed form, someone who could be anything at any moment, that person is fascinating. That person is powerful. That person is free. Sun Tzu wrote that the clever combatant imposes his will on the enemy, but does not allow the enemy's will to be imposed on him. Right now, the enemy is imposing their will on you constantly. Your boss knows you're the reliable one, so they dump extra work on you. Your friends know you're the easygoing one, so they make all the decisions. Your family knows you're the strong one, so they never ask if you need support. They're all treating you according to the identity you've shown them. And you comply because breaking character would mean admitting that who you've been pretending to be isn't actually who you are. But here is the secret. Who you've been pretending to be was never who you were. It was always just a strategy, a way of navigating the world that made sense at the time. But strategies should change when circumstances change. The fact that you're still using the same identity strategy you developed as a teenager is insane. You wouldn't use a map from 20 years ago to navigate a city that is completely changed. Why are you using an identity from 20 years ago to navigate a life that is completely different? Becoming no one doesn't mean becoming nothing. It means becoming everything. It means having access to the full range of human behavior instead of the narrow slice you've allowed yourself. Think about it like this. An actor who can only play one type of character is limited. They get typecast. They're predictable. But an actor who can play anything, who can be a hero in one film and a villain in the next, who can be comedic and then tragic and then mysterious, that actor works constantly because they're useful in any situation. You are that actor. But you've decided to only play one role for your entire life, and you're wondering why life feels repetitive and limited, and like you're not reaching your potential. It is because you're not. You're reaching the potential of the character you've been playing, but the character is fiction. The real you has no limits, because the real you has no form. Sun Tzu teaches that opportunities multiply as they are seized, but you can't seize opportunities that don't fit your identity. If you identify as someone who plays it safe, you'll never seize the risky opportunity, even when it is clearly the right move. If you identify as someone who is independent, you'll never seize the opportunity to collaborate, even when you desperately need help. If you identify as someone who is practical, you'll never seize the creative opportunity, even when it could change everything. Your identity is a filter that is blocking out 90% of reality. You're only seeing and responding to the 10% that confirms who you think you are, and you're calling that living. It is not living. It is sleepwalking through a script you wrote when you didn't know any better. Here is what is really happening. Every identity is a defense mechanism. You're not an introvert because that is your true nature. You're an introvert because at some point being quiet and staying in the background kept you safe. You're not someone who doesn't trust easily because that is just who you are. You're someone who got hurt and decided that not trusting people would prevent future hurt. You're not naturally pessimistic. You're protecting yourself from disappointment. Every personality trait you think is you is actually a scar. It is your psyche's attempt to protect you from something that hurt you in the past, and it worked for a while. But now those defense mechanisms are limiting you more than they're protecting you. The walls you built to keep pain out are also keeping growth out. The mask you wore to stay safe is suffocating you, and the identity you constructed to survive is preventing you from thriving. Sun Tzu said that in the midst of chaos there is also opportunity. Your identity craves order. It wants everything to make sense, to fit into categories, to be predictable. But life is chaos. Life is constantly changing, constantly throwing curveballs, constantly demanding that you adapt. And if you're locked into an identity, you experience that chaos as a threat. But if you have no identity, If you're formless, you experience chaos as opportunity because you can become whatever the chaos requires. You can flow around obstacles instead of crashing into them. You can adapt to circumstances instead of demanding that circumstances adapt to you. This is the ultimate freedom. Not the freedom to be whoever you want, but the freedom to be nobody, which paradoxically means you can be anybody. Let me give you a practical example. Imagine you're in a negotiation. If you've identified yourself as a tough negotiator who never backs down, you've just limited your options. You can't concede even when conceding would get you what you want, because it would contradict your identity. But if you have no identity in that negotiation, if you're formless, you can be tough when it serves you and flexible when it serves you. You can be aggressive or collaborative or mysterious or transparent, depending on what the moment requires. You're not performing a character. You're responding to reality, and response is always more powerful than performance, because performance is predictable and response is adaptive. Sun Tzu wrote that the greatest victory is that which requires no battle. You can't win battles you refuse to fight, and right now you're refusing to fight the one battle that actually matters. The battle against your own fixed identity. You'll fight everyone else. You'll defend your opinions, protect your image, justify your choices, but you won't fight the story you're telling yourself about who you are. You won't question whether that story is true, or whether it is serving you, or whether it is time to let it go. And as long as you won't fight that battle, you'll keep losing every other battle, because every other battle is just a symptom. The disease is the illusion that you are someone fixed, someone definable, someone who has to maintain consistency with a past version of yourself that no longer exists. Here's the truth nobody wants to hear. The person you were yesterday is dead. They're gone. They don't exist anymore. And the person you'll be tomorrow doesn't exist yet. The only thing that exists is this moment right now. And in this moment, you are not bound by anything you've said or done or been before. You can choose differently right now. You can respond differently right now. You can be different right now, but you won't because you're committed to being consistent. You're committed to this narrative of, I'm the kind of person who, and that commitment is killing you. It is killing your potential, your opportunities, your freedom. You're sacrificing your future to maintain consistency with a past that wasn't even real in the first place. Sun Tzu teaches that all men can see the tactics whereby I conquer, but what none can see is the strategy out of which victory is evolved. Your identity is your tactics. It is how you show up, what you say, how you behave. Everyone can see it, but the strategy is invisible. The strategy is the unconscious programming that created that identity. And if you want to be free, you need to see the strategy. You need to understand why you became who you became. What pain were you avoiding? What need were you trying to meet? What trauma were you trying to process? Your identity isn't random, it is strategic. It was your best attempt to navigate a dangerous world, but you're not in that same danger anymore. The threat has passed, but you're still running the same defensive program, and that program is now the threat. Becoming no one is terrifying because it feels like death, and it is death. It is the death of the false self, the death of the character, the death of the story you've been telling yourself for decades. But here is what is on the other side of that death. Freedom, real freedom. Not the freedom to do whatever you want, but the freedom to be whatever the moment requires. The freedom to access any quality, any skill, any characteristic when you need it. When you become no one, you become everyone. You contain all possibilities. You're no longer limited by who you think you are, because you've stopped thinking you are anything fixed. Sun Tzu said that the wise warrior avoids the battle. Stop fighting to maintain your identity. Stop defending who you think you are. Stop performing consistency. Just be present. Just respond. Just adapt. When someone criticizes you, instead of defending, ask yourself, is there truth here? When you fail at something, instead of protecting your ego, ask yourself, what can I learn? When life demands something from you that doesn't fit your character, instead of refusing, ask yourself, what if I could be this too? You don't have to announce that you're changing. You don't have to make it a big thing. Just stop being so committed to being consistent. Just allow yourself to be different in different situations. Just give yourself permission to contradict yourself. The only people who will be confused are the people who were trying to control you by keeping you in a box. Everyone else will just see you as more interesting, more capable, more alive. Here is your practice. For the next 30 days, become a spy in your own life. When people ask who you are, give them different answers. When situations arise that would normally trigger your default character, try on a different response. If you usually react with anger, try calm. If you usually withdraw, try engaging. If you usually plan everything, Try spontaneity. You're not trying to find a new identity. You're trying to prove to yourself that you're not bound by any identity. You're trying to experience the freedom of formlessness. And what you'll discover is that you're actually better at most things than you thought you were. The only reason you weren't good at them before is because you decided you weren't that kind of person. But you're not any kind of person. You're no one, and no one can be anyone. Sun Tzu's final wisdom is this: know yourself, and you will win all battles. But knowing yourself doesn't mean knowing your personality, or your preferences, or your identity. It means knowing that underneath all of that, you are formless. You are awareness. You are the space in which all forms arise. And that space cannot be defeated, because it cannot be pinned down. It cannot be controlled, because it cannot be predicted. It cannot be limited, because it contains all possibilities. That is what you are. Everything else is costume. Everything else is performance. Everything else is optional. And the moment you realize that, the moment you stop defending the costume and recognize yourself as the actor, you become untouchable. You become no one. And no one is the most powerful thing you can be, because no one can be everyone. No one can adapt to anything. No one can win every battle by never showing up as the same warrior twice. Become no one and inherit everything.